Two alien girls came to Earth as punishment but found love instead on a quiet night. The sky above Earth was pierced by a brilliant streak of light. It wasn't a comet or a falling star, but something far more unusual: two alien ships, burning as they plummeted towards the surface. Their impact shook the ground, sending tremors across the land. The ships shattered on impact, their remains scattered across a vast, desolate field. What had been once mighty craft, used to navigating through galaxies, were now nothing more than twisted metal and burning debris. The two beings that emerged from the wreckage were far from ordinary. They were Zaria and Vera, princesses of the Nivar Empire, a powerful civilization that had ruled over countless worlds. But now they were stranded on Earth, their advanced technology rendered useless. Their once glorious future had crumbled. Zaria, the elder of the two, stood tall with long, jet-black hair and piercing silver eyes. Her regal armor, once shining with the colors of her empire, was now scorched and torn. She looked around, her gaze cold and calculating, as if she was already planning her next move. Zaria had always been a warrior, fiercely determined and unyielding. Being sent to a primitive planet like Earth was nothing short of an insult. She wasn't meant to be stuck here, stranded without resources. She was a conqueror. Beside her stood Vera, younger by several years. Vera was the more thoughtful and curious of the two. Her appearance was striking too, with violet skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light of the setting sun. Her eyes, a soft shade of gold, were wide with wonder rather than the usual sharpness of her sister. While Zaria saw Earth as a punishment, Vera saw it as a mystery, a strange, unknown world that could hold new experiences and discoveries. "How did this happen?" Zaria muttered under her breath, her voice filled with disbelief. She slammed her fist into the charred remains of their ship, sending sparks flying. Vera's gaze lingered on the debris as she slowly walked around the crash site. "It wasn't just our technology that failed us. It was our arrogance." She spoke softly, almost as if to herself. "We underestimated them." "Enough, Vera," Zaria snapped, her temper flaring. "We don't have time for guilt. We need to find a way off this planet, and quickly. The sooner we leave, the better." Vera paused, looking at her sister. "What if we can't leave? What if we have to stay here for longer than we expected?" Her voice was tinged with a rare hint of doubt. Earth wasn't like the places they had conquered before. The humans here were strange, and their technology was primitive. Zaria took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She didn't want to admit it, but Vera was right. Earth was different. They had no ship, no technology, and no allies. Even their powers were diminished. The punishment their empire had given them was severe. They were supposed to learn humility, to understand the weaknesses of their own empire. But how could they, two beings who had always known power, survive on a world like this? "Let's head north," Zaria said, her voice firm. "We need shelter, food, and information. If we're going to get off this planet, we need to understand more about it." And so, the two of them began their journey. The vast field they had crashed in was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of wind through the tall grass. As they walked, Vera couldn't help but marvel at the strange, green landscape. It was so different from the cold, metallic worlds they were used to. The sky was a bright blue, and the air smelled fresh, nothing like the sterile, recycled air of their ships. "Zaria," Vera said after a few moments, her voice tinged with wonder, "do you ever think about what we left behind? Our empire, our home." Zaria's face hardened. "It doesn't matter now. The empire is no longer our concern. We've been cast aside, exiled. Our future is here on this primitive world. It's up to us to survive, to rebuild our strength. Only then will we have the power to return." Vera looked up at the sky, her thoughts drifting. The vastness of the universe stretched out before her, filled with endless possibilities. Could they truly find a way back to their former glory? Or had they been forgotten, left to wither on Earth forever? They walked for hours, eventually coming upon a small town. It was quiet, peaceful, a stark contrast to the harsh, unforgiving nature of the Nivar Empire. The humans here didn't seem to notice them at first, too busy with their own lives. But Vera noticed something unusual. Despite their primitive technology, the humans carried themselves with an energy, a resilience that she found intriguing. Zarya, ever the skeptic, wasn't so easily impressed. She had no interest in getting close to humans, seeing them only as an obstacle. They were weak, fragile, and beneath her. She wanted to leave this place to find a way to restore their power, but she knew they had no choice. They needed to learn more about Earth if they were to survive. "Stay close," Zarya ordered, her voice cold. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." Vera nodded, though she wasn't so certain. As they made their way through the town, she couldn't help but observe the people around them. The humans went about their daily routines, unaware of the two powerful beings walking among them. Some of them looked curious, but most were too busy with their own lives to pay any attention. "These people are nothing like the ones we conquered," Vera said quietly. "They're different." Zarya glanced at her sister, her eyes narrowing. "Different doesn't matter. We'll use whatever we can to get what we need. If we have to manipulate these humans to survive, so be it." Vera's golden eyes met Zarya's, a brief moment of uncertainty passing between them. She had always been the one to question their methods, to search for a deeper meaning behind their actions. Zarya, on the other hand, had always been a warrior, ruthless, efficient, and unyielding. But here on Earth, something was changing within her. Something she wasn't ready to face. They continued walking through the town, blending in with the crowd. But both of them knew their arrival hadn't gone unnoticed. They were far from home, and the future ahead of them was uncertain. But for the first time, Zarya felt a flicker of doubt, a sense that maybe, just maybe, this punishment wasn't about exile. Maybe it was about something else entirely. Zarya and Vera had spent the last few days navigating the strange world of Earth. The town they had entered was small, tucked away in the middle of vast fields and forests. It was nothing like the grand cities they were accustomed to in the Nivar Empire. There were no towering buildings or advanced technology, only simple wooden homes and dirt roads. The people here lived in harmony with the land, cultivating crops and raising animals. It was a peaceful existence, far removed from the ruthless expansion they had known. As they roamed the town, Zarya and Vera kept their distance from the humans, careful not to draw too much attention. Despite the apparent weakness of the people here, Zarya couldn't help but notice their resilience. They had a quiet strength, a will to survive that seemed foreign to her. She dismissed it at first, thinking it was merely a survival instinct. But the longer they stayed, the more she found herself intrigued by them. Vera, on the other hand, was fascinated. She watched the humans go about their lives, interacting with one another, helping each other. Their relationship seemed so simple, yet so profound. In the Nivar Empire, everything had been about power and control. Relationships were built on alliances and manipulation, not love and trust. Here on Earth, she saw something she hadn't expected to find: kindness. One afternoon, as they were walking through the town, a human approached them. He was a middle-aged man wearing glasses and a white coat. His face was kind, but there was a sense of urgency in his step. "Are you newcomers?" he asked, his voice tentative. He studied them both, as if sensing something unusual about them. Zarya immediately tensed, her instincts telling her to be cautious. But Vera, ever the curious one, stepped forward. "Yes," Vera answered, her voice calm but slightly uncertain. "We are travelers. We've lost our way." The man raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. "You're far from home, that's for sure. I'm Dr. Thomas Lang," he said, offering his hand to Vera, who hesitated for only a moment before shaking it. "I'm Vera," she said softly, her eyes filled with curiosity. "This is my sister, Zarya." Dr. Lang didn't seem to be put off by their strange appearance. He looked at them both with a mixture of fascination and concern. "You're not from around here, are you? I've been studying unusual phenomena for years, and you two certainly fit the description." He paused, looking over his shoulder to make sure no one was watching. "I have a lab not far from here. You might be able to find some answers." Zaria's instincts screamed at her to walk away, to avoid this man and his strange offer. But Vera, ever the optimist, saw it as an opportunity to learn more about this world and perhaps even find a way off the planet. She glanced at Zaria, silently pleading with her to agree. Zaria hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Fine," she said, though her tone was reluctant. "But we stay in control." Dr. Lang smiled, clearly relieved. "I'll take that as a yes. Follow me." They walked through the town, past small homes and fields of crops, until they reached a small building at the edge of the settlement. It was a simple structure, with a sign that read Lang's Research Facility hanging above the door. Dr. Lang led them inside, where the air was filled with the smell of chemicals and old books. The room was cluttered with papers, strange devices, and various pieces of equipment that looked unfamiliar to the aliens. "This is where I've been conducting my research," Dr. Lang explained as he led them to a small table covered with various tools. "I've always been interested in extraterrestrial life, and recently I've noticed some strange energy readings in this area. When I saw you two, I couldn't help but make the connection." Zaria and Vera exchanged glances. Dr. Lang had no idea who or what they really were. To him, they were just two strangers, maybe even a little like his subjects in his research. But Vera wasn't bothered by that. She was more interested in his findings and what they might mean for their situation. "You study the stars?" Vera asked, her voice filled with genuine interest. "Not just the stars," Dr. Lang replied, his eyes lighting up. "I study anything that doesn't belong. I've been tracking unexplained phenomena for years. Things like energy surges, strange lights in the sky, and reports of encounters with beings like you two." Zaria couldn't help but feel a pang of annoyance. "We are not things," she said sharply. "Dr. Lang immediately apologized, his face reddening. "I didn't mean it that way. He paused, noticing the tension between them. "Look, I'm just trying to understand what's going on. If you're from space, maybe you can help me make sense of it." Vera stepped forward, her curiosity piqued. "We may be able to help, but we're not here to share everything. We came here out of necessity, not out of desire to explain ourselves." Zaria, meanwhile, was still wary. She wanted to leave this place to find a way back to their empire. But Vera was right. This man could provide them with valuable knowledge, and maybe he could help them in ways they hadn't considered. Dr. Lang seemed to understand their reluctance. "I get it. You don't trust me, and that's fine, but I'm just one person. You don't have to tell me everything. I just want to help." Zaria looked at Vera, who was now more relaxed. She could see the hope in her sister's eyes. For the first time since their arrival on Earth, Zaria felt a small flicker of something she hadn't felt in a long time, a desire to trust. "Fine," Zaria said after a moment, her voice softer than before. "We'll stay for now, but if this gets out of hand, we'll leave." Dr. Lang nodded eagerly, relieved. "You won't regret it, I promise. Let me show you what I've been working on." He led them to a small room at the back of the building, where several monitors and strange machines hummed with activity. One of the screens displayed a map of the area, with several strange energy readings marked across it. "These are the anomalies I've been tracking," Dr. Lang explained. "They seem to be concentrated in a few key locations. I believe they might be linked to the presence of extraterrestrial life." Zaria studied the map, her mind working quickly. She recognized some of the patterns: energy surges, unexplained disturbances. It wasn't much, but it was something. She turned to Vera. "This could be useful," Zaria admitted reluctantly. "We need to keep an eye on these locations. If there's a way off this planet, it might be there." Vera smiled, grateful that her sister was starting to see the value in Dr. Lang's work. She turned to Dr. Lang. "Thank you. We'll help you with your research." Dr. Lang's eyes widened in surprise. "You will? That's incredible. I can't tell you how much this means to me. Together, we might be able to find the answers." As the two aliens settled into the strange human world, they knew they had made an important ally. They had come to Earth as prisoners, as exiles. But in Dr. Lang's lab, they found something unexpected, a glimpse of hope, a chance to understand their new world and perhaps to find a way back home. Little did they know, the strange energy readings Dr. Lang had discovered were just the beginning. Their journey on Earth was far from over, and the challenges they would face were only starting to unfold. The days stretched on, and Zarya and Vera grew more accustomed to life on Earth. Their presence, while still a secret to most, was slowly becoming an integral part of the small town they had stumbled upon. Dr. Lang, their unlikely ally, continued to study the strange energy surges they had noticed, and his obsession with the data was growing. The two sisters, although still wary, helped him with his research, watching as the puzzle pieces began to fall into place. But beneath the surface, things were not as peaceful as they appeared. Dr. Lang's work had caught the attention of more than just the curious townspeople. Hidden away from the public eye, a group of individuals had been tracking extraterrestrial activity for years. Their organization, known as the Earth Coalition, had been preparing for the day when Earth would face an outside threat. They had seen the signs, the strange lights in the sky, the unexplained power surges, and now the arrival of Zarya and Vera. The Coalition had been waiting for this moment. Meanwhile, far above Earth, a dark fleet of alien ships hovered in orbit. They were not from the Nivar Empire, but from a distant, ruthless race known as the Zelthan. The Zelthan had been watching Earth for years, believing it to be a valuable resource. They had tracked the same energy surges that Dr. Lang had discovered, but their interests were far different. They didn't care about understanding the planet, they were interested in exploiting it. As the days passed, Zarya and Vera became more entwined with the humans. Vera, ever the curious one, found herself becoming attached to Dr. Lang's quiet kindness. She saw in him something that had always been missing in her life, an openness, a willingness to learn and grow without the pressure of power and control. Zarya, however, remained distant. Her focus was on their survival, on finding a way back to the stars and regaining their empire's strength. It was late one evening when everything changed. Zarya and Vera were in Dr. Lang's lab, studying the latest data, when a loud knock echoed at the door. Dr. Lang froze, his eyes widening in alarm. "Stay here," he whispered urgently, turning to Zarya and Vera. "I'll go see who it is." But Zarya's instincts immediately kicked in. She wasn't used to people knocking on doors at this hour, especially when their work was so secretive. She motioned for Vera to stay silent, her hand instinctively resting on the hilt of the blade she'd kept hidden since their arrival. Dr. Lang opened the door, but no sooner had he done so than a figure shoved him back into the room. The door slammed shut behind the newcomer with a loud bang. It was a man tall, with sharp features, wearing a dark uniform that screamed of military precision. His eyes were cold, calculating. Behind him, two more men stood guard, their faces hidden beneath helmets. "Who are you?" Zarya demanded, stepping forward, her voice cold and full of authority. The man smiled, a cruel smile that didn't reach his eyes. "My name is Commander Rylan. We've been watching you for a while, Princess." Vera's eyes narrowed. "How do you know who we are?" "We know more than you think," Rylan said, his voice smooth, dangerous. "I also know you've been in contact with Dr. Lang. That's a problem for us. You see, we've been tracking alien activity on this planet for some time now, and your arrival, your energy. Well, it's far too much of a coincidence." Zarya's hand tightened around the blade, but Vera held her back. This wasn't just a threat from random humans. These men were part of something bigger, something that had been watching them closely, much like the Zelthan. "You're with the Earth Coalition, aren't you?" Vera asked, her voice steady. Rylan smirked. "Smart girl. Yes, we are. We've been preparing for an alien invasion for years. We've been studying every anomaly, every strange signal, and now we've found you." Zaria's heart raced. She hadn't expected this. She thought they had been hidden, but now they were exposed. The Earth Coalition was no friend of theirs. They were not just keeping track of alien threats, they were actively hunting them. "You should leave now," Zaria warned, her voice full of ice. "Or I'll make you." Ryland's eyes flicked to the blade in her hand, then to the strange, glowing energy that surrounded her. He wasn't intimidated. In fact, he seemed almost pleased. "I don't think you understand, Princess. You're not in control here, we are." With a swift motion, Ryland gestured to his men, and in an instant they sprang forward, grabbing Dr. Lang and forcing him to the ground. He struggled, but it was clear that they had prepared for such an encounter. "You're not taking him," Vera snapped, stepping forward. Before she could act, Ryland raised his hand, signaling his men to hold Dr. Lang back. "You're not in any position to negotiate. You've been found. We can make things much easier for you, or we can make things difficult." Zaria's eyes burned with fury, but she knew they were outnumbered. For the first time, she felt the weight of her sister's words, that Earth was not the same as the places they had once conquered. She could fight, yes, but the humans here had a different kind of strength. It wasn't power that mattered, but unity. "We don't want to fight you," Vera said softly, stepping closer to the commander. Her voice was calm, but it carried an authority that matched Zaria's. "We just want to understand this planet. We're not your enemy." Ryland laughed, a low, mocking sound. "Oh, I think you are, but you don't have to be. Join us. We could use your abilities. Imagine what we could accomplish together." Zaria was quiet for a moment. She wanted to rip through these humans to show them the power of the Nivar Empire. But then she glanced at Vera, who had a different look in her eyes, one that made her pause. "What do you think, Vera?" Zaria asked quietly. Vera didn't answer immediately. She studied Rylan and his men, then Dr. Lang, who was still struggling under the men's grip. She thought of everything they had done so far, the people they had met, the kindness that had been shown to them. Could they truly join forces with these humans? "No," Vera said at last, her voice firm. "We're not joining you. You may think you're in control, but you're wrong." Zaria felt a flicker of pride. Vera had always been the more compassionate one, but in that moment her sister was standing strong. Zaria stepped forward, ready to face the humans head-on. "Then we'll take you down," Zaria growled. Before the situation could escalate further, the door to the lab crashed open. A loud bang echoed through the room, and in the doorway stood a group of soldiers, human soldiers, armed with advanced weapons. They wore the insignia of the Earth Coalition, but were different. These soldiers were not under Ryland's command. They were there for one purpose, to protect Earth from the Zelthan invasion. The soldiers opened fire and the room erupted into chaos. The gunfire rang out, cutting through the air like thunder. Zaria's instincts kicked in as she ducked behind a metal table, narrowly avoiding the blast of a high-tech weapon. The Earth Coalition soldiers, under Ryland's command, were firing rapidly, but Zaria was faster. She moved with the speed and grace of a seasoned warrior, dodging and weaving around the room. Vera, though hesitant at first, followed her sister's lead. Her powers, though diminished by Earth's atmosphere, were still strong enough to make her a formidable opponent. She called upon her energy, channeling it through her hands, and sent a burst of force into one of the soldiers, knocking him off his feet. The room erupted into chaos. The soldiers were well trained, but they were not prepared for the speed and ferocity of Zaria and Vera. Zaria's blade was a blur as she slashed through the air, disarming one soldier after another, her movements precise and deadly. Vera, though not as violent as her sister, used her energy to disable their weapons and push them back. Dr. Lang, still on the ground, watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded before him. His research, his life's work, had just been thrown into a storm of violence. He had never expected any of this. These two aliens whom he had thought were peaceful were now fighting for their lives. Yet, despite the conflict, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of admiration for them. They were not just invaders, they were survivors. In the middle of the battle, Rylan barked an order, and two more soldiers rushed in, wielding heavier weaponry. They aimed their guns at Zarya, and in that moment it seemed like they might finally have the upper hand. But just as they pulled the triggers, a flash of light filled the room, and the soldiers froze, their guns falling from their hands. Standing in the doorway was a new group of figures. These soldiers were different. They wore black uniforms with no insignia, their eyes hidden behind dark visors. They moved with military precision, taking control of the room in seconds. Zarya and Vera paused, confused. They were not expecting backup. "These are not your enemies," a calm voice rang out from the shadows. The leader of the mysterious soldiers stepped forward. He was tall, with sharp features and an aura of command. His voice was calm but authoritative. "I'm Captain Terk. We've been tracking the Zelthans' movements and we knew you two were in danger." Zarya's brow furrowed. "Who are you?" "We're the Earth Resistance," Terk replied, his voice steady. "And we've been preparing for the Zelthans' arrival for years. We've watched their every move." "We know exactly who you are." Vera's eyes widened. "You've been watching us." "We've been watching everything," Terk confirmed. "The Earth Coalition is misguided. They think they can control you, use you, but we know the truth. You're not invaders. You're survivors just like us, and we want to help." Zarya's mind raced. Everything was happening so fast. She had expected a battle, a fight to the end. But now here were these soldiers offering help instead of more conflict. She looked at Vera, whose eyes were filled with a mixture of surprise and hope. "We've had enough of this war," Vera said quietly, her voice carrying a weight of emotion. "We didn't come here to fight. We came to survive, to find a way off this planet." Captain Terk nodded. "We understand, but the truth is there is nowhere to run. The Zelthan are already here. They've been watching Earth for a long time. Their fleet is hidden in orbit, and soon they'll make their move." Zarya's grip tightened on her blade. "We won't let them take Earth. It's ours to protect now." Terk smiled slightly. "We don't want to take Earth. We want to defend it with your help." The room grew quiet as everyone processed the gravity of the situation. The Earth Resistance was right. Earth wasn't just a world of simple humans anymore. It was a battleground, and it was up to them to decide its future. "We'll join you," Zarya said finally, her voice steady. "We will help you fight, but make no mistake, we are not your allies yet. We are fighting for our survival, and Earth just happens to be in the way of the Zelthans' path." Vera's expression softened. She knew her sister wasn't entirely convinced by Terk's words, but she also knew that this was their best shot. If the Earth Resistance could help them fight off the Zelthan, it would give them time to figure out their next move. Dr. Lang stood up, brushing himself off. "I'm in. If you're fighting the Zelthan, I want to help. I've spent years studying the energy signatures they leave behind. I know how they think. I can help you prepare." Terk nodded, his eyes shifting to the scientists in the room. "We need all the help we can get. The Zelthan are not just here for resources. They want Earth and they will stop at nothing to take it." Zarya's eyes narrowed. "We will stop them. We won't let them have Earth." With that, the decision was made. The Earth Resistance and the two alien sisters now shared a common enemy. They would fight together to protect the planet, even if their motives were different. Zarya and Vera were no longer the exiled princesses of a lost empire. They were protectors of Earth, a world they had once thought of as weak and insignificant, but now saw as something worth fighting for. The days that followed were a whirlwind of preparation. Zarya and Vera trained with the Earth Resistance, learning the intricacies of human combat techniques and sharing their own alien knowledge. Zarya's skills with a blade were unmatched, and Vera's ability to harness and manipulate energy was something the humans had never seen before. Dr. Lang worked tirelessly with the Resistance's scientists, using his knowledge to create new weapons and strategies to combat the Zelthan. The Resistance's headquarters, hidden deep in an underground bunker, became a place of hope and determination. The soldiers and civilians of Earth worked together, creating a united front against the incoming alien threat. It was no longer just about survival, it was about victory. It was about reclaiming their world. As the final preparations were made, Zarya and Vera stood together, looking out over the horizon. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the landscape. The world, though still in danger, was beautiful, more beautiful than they had ever realized. "This is our home now," Vera said quietly, her voice filled with a soft determination. Zarya nodded, her face hardening with resolve. "And we will protect it, no matter what." The two sisters stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The Zelthan were coming. But so were the Resistance, and with the strength of both Earth's people and the two alien sisters, they would not back down. They would fight together to defend the world that had given them a second chance. And in that fight, they would find not just survival, but a new sense of purpose, a purpose built on trust, unity, and love.